Hi everybody, it's Barb at Quilts Happen, and we are working on block number 2 for our 25-26 block of the month, and this is your pattern. So it's so cute, and oh my gosh, it's even cuter in person. So this is the block that you're making, and we will make it together as we go through the pattern. I follow the pattern exactly, and I am doing step by step by step. So feel free to sew along with me, or feel free to skip through whatever parts you don't think you need. So it is designed to be a sew along. So anyways, I hope you have as much fun as I did. All right, everybody, so we are looking at block of the month number 2. So here's the pattern. This is our cute little block. It's so cute. And these are the fabrics. So the teal dot marble is a 5 by 5 inch square. Okay, it looks like that. The dark apricot is a 5 inch by 10.5 inch rectangle. I know it sounds like a weird size, but I was saving fabric. So you could do it with 5 by 11 or 6 by 11, whatever you prefer. Okay, and then we have the light blue and the dark blue. Now, the thing to know about the light blue and the dark blue for this particular one is these are not batiks. They look like batiks, but they're not. So there is a right side, the pretty side, and a wrong side, which is the faded side. So when you're piecing your things together, I'll try to remember to say right sides together so that you don't forget. Batiks, you don't need to worry about it. And the dark blue is the same way. See, you can definitely tell the difference. So just be careful. And then you have a background piece. Oh, both of those are 5.5. Oh, by 9 inch rectangles. Okay, and then we have the background piece, which is a batik. But you know, this batik, it actually is darker on one side than the other. So if that matters to you, you might want to pay attention to that. And that is a 10 by 10.5 inch rectangle. So we will get together and we will start doing our cutting together. So see you in a minute. Okay, so following the pattern directions, we're going to start with the fabric A, which is the teal dot marble, which is this one. I don't know how I came up with these names, but whatever. And almost forgot to have a ruler out. That would have been weird. Okay, so we're going to cut this one 4.5 inches. So you can line it up on here and use your mat and cut 4.5 and 4.5, or you can take a ruler, and this one is a 5 inch ruler. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go 4.5, make sure that it's straight here and here, because that's 4.5 right there. So I'm going to cut that off. Yep, not on the ruler, on the fabric. That would be helpful. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it. I can turn my mat, so I'm going to. And then I'm going to do it again on this side. And I'm going to line it up on the 1/2 inch, which is here. And then here, it's also on the 1/2 inch. Okay, I'm going to turn my fabric, and then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to go to the 1/2 inch mark, which is right here along this line is what I'm doing. I'm also making sure that this side is straight and that this side is straight. I want that one on the 4.5, this on the 4.5, and then I'm going to cut this one right here. And voila, I have a 4.5 by 4.5 inch square, and you can double check it on your mat and make sure that it's right, and it is. So, yay. Next on our pattern, it says we're going to cut the dark apricot, and we are going to make rectangles this time. So we're going to lay our fabric this way. If you look on the pattern, it tells you which way to lay your fabric so that you get the right cuts and you don't waste your fabric. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut 2 4.5 by 5 inch rectangles. I know that sounds really weird, right? So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to trim this at 4.5, and then I'm going to cut 5. So I'm actually turning it, so don't freak out. A ruler. So you can line this up on here and then make sure you're straight on both sides. If you need to trim it because it was cut crooked, do that first. So to make sure you have straight edges. I just cut these yesterday, so they're straight. So then I'm going to do 4.5 this way on the long side. Okay. I had to get my bigger ruler because I couldn't actually see it. So there's my 4.5 and there's my 4.5 up here. So it's straight. So I'm going to trim that off. Toss that aside. Now I'm going to turn it this way and I'm going to cut at 5 inches because I want 4.5 by 5 inch rectangles. So this is now 4.5. You can double check it. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. And I'm going to go over and I'm going to cut on 5. And then I'm going to go over and cut on 10 because 5 plus 5 makes 10. Look at me doing math. Not yet, that wasn't hard. All right, so here are my my apricot pieces. Now on the directions, it says now you need to subcut that into 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it so that I'm cutting. This is the 4.5. You can double check it. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. And I'm going to cut it on the 2.5 because I'm basically cutting the 5 inches in half. So, and this is batik, so it doesn't matter which side you're doing. There's no right side in batik. Okay, so I'm going to cut this one. If you want, you could stack those and cut them, which is what I usually do, but for today I'm not. Okay. Seems to me that people always are mostly afraid of the cutting. Like they don't mind putting the block together or sewing it or whatever. It's always the cutting that scares people. So take your time. It's not a race. So there I have 4 2.5 by 5.5 inch, 4, oh my gosh, I can't talk. 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles. And I have 4 of them. Okay, next is fabric L, which is the dark blue. Remember, this has a back side and a front side, so make sure your front side is up. And we are going to just cut 2 5-inch squares. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to trim the 5 first. So I'm going to turn it this way. And I'm going to trim the 5, and then I can just cut 2 5-inch squares. There's that. I'm going to turn it. I could turn my mat because it's a spinny mat, which is super cool. If you don't have one, I highly recommend it. But it keeps hitting my holder for the camera, so whatever. I'll just do it old-fashioned way and turn it myself. Okay, and then cut that at 5, and then once again, 5 plus 5 is 10. Done. And these ones are finished. Oops, almost put it in the wrong pile. Okay, I'm going to turn my pattern over. And now I'm going to do the light blue, which is fabric K, and it is going to have us do 2.5-inch squares, a whole bunch of them, 8 of them. So I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to cut 2.5 and then 2.5 from the long side. So I'm going to turn it like this. Again, make sure your edges are straight so that you have straight squares when you're done. They are. And they probably are on yours if I cut it, because I just cut them yesterday. Okay, so there's 2.5. I'm gonna cut all the way up. And I'm actually I guess I can just cut on 5 because 2.5 plus 2.5 is 5. Okay. Now, I'm going to stack these ones and cut them. So, when you're stacking, you want to just be really careful that you have all your edges lined up nice and straight. You're not hanging way far off on one side or the other. So there I have them stacked, and they still have a straight edge all the way. So now I'm going to cut 2.5-inch squares. So I'm going to go here at 2.5. I'm actually using my mat to line this up. You can also use the ruler. So this is using the mat. I'm using my dots and I'm using my line. That's 2.5. Now, if you want to use your ruler, all you have to do is go 1, 2.5. So this line right here is the half mark. So you're going to put it there. And whenever you're using your ruler to cut, always make sure you line it up. So this is straight and that is straight. And actually it's straight down here too. then you can cut. More often than not, I use my ruler. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to go 1, 2.5. Oops. And so I'm checking, is it straight? Yes, ma'am. There you go. And I'm going to do it one more time. Oops, that was 3 inches. That would have been bad. So 1, 2.5. Always recount. And I'm done. So now I have all of these squares, which are beauteous. And then the last piece we have to cut is our background. Okay, so this is a much bigger piece because you have to make more cuts. So if you look on here, it's kind of weird. You've got 5 inches and 4.5 by 5 inches. The 5 inches are this way, not this way on the bottom half. So I'm going to cut off my 5-inch strip first. Go like this. Okay, I'm going to cut off my 5 because I'm going to make 2 5-inch squares. So I'm actually going to set that aside for a minute. I'm going to turn this and I'm going to cut 5 inches, and it's already at 5 inches because it was a 10.5 by 10, so it was already at 10 inches. Yay! So set that aside. Now I'm going to pull this piece back and I'm going to cut the 4.5 by 5 inch squares, just like we did on the apricot. It's exactly the same cut as the apricot. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to put it on at 4.5. That doesn't look right. Okay, 4.5. There we go. So I've got, yep, 4.5. Okay. Now I'm going to turn it and I'm going to cut it into the 5s. Just like we did on the apricot. It's exactly the same piece and everything. Okay. And it's already cut at 10, so perfect. Now, just like the apricot, we're going to cut these ones in half. So I'm going to stack them this time. And we're going to cut the 5 inches in half. So I'm going to lay it like this. Remember, make sure you're laying it nice and straight if you're stacking. Okay, you've got your straight edges, and then I'm going to cut at 2.5. I'm actually using my ruler for this one. This mat is great because it's small, but it's hard because it's got dots and they're not numbered down here. So I tend to use my ruler if I can. And then I cut that. So it's just like the apricot pieces. And you have 4 of them. And that, my friends, is all the cutting that you need to put this block together. So I have all of them stacked. Okay, and then I'm going to start grabbing them and sewing the pieces together. So I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so the first step in the pattern is we're going to make half square triangle units. It says right here. So you're going to use your dark blue fabric, your L, and your background fabric, the big squares, okay? Because we're going to actually make half square triangles. Now the directions say that you need to, on the back of your background, which there is a little bit of a difference on this one, so be careful. If you're using, not using batiks, make sure that you are checking to make sure you're on the back side of your fabric. And it says to draw a line from corner to corner, right? And so then you're going to place it right on top, right sides together of this one, and you're going to actually sew a 1/4 inch along both sides of that drawn line. Okay, if you have diagonal seam tape, you don't have to do the drawing. I mean, it's only two lines, so whatever. But you don't have to if you don't want to. Okay, for the purposes of the video, I'm going to go ahead and just draw the line. There's only 2 this time. If I'm doing a lot, I'm not going to lie, I don't do it. I do the diagonal seam tape, which later I'm going to be doing with the others. So, okay, so just make sure they're on there straight. Okay, and then we're going to sew on a 1/4 inch of both lines. Along a 1/4 inch away from both lines. So. And feel free to skip past any of this stuff because, I mean, you know what a sewing machine looks like. But if you're a beginner sewer and you're just starting and you want to actually sew in real time with me, which is what this video is designed for, feel free to just sew along with me. I am actually a retired teacher, so I can't help it. I teach when I work, so that most of my videos are designed for new people who are just getting into sewing. So, all right, so now I'm going to go along the other side. Some people leave them hooked together, but I don't like to do that. It stresses me out, so I don't do it. If you like to leave them hooked together and then sew them in as you go, that's totally fine. It's your choice. It just stresses me out, which is totally dumb, but whatever. Using my blade saver to cut my pieces. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to actually cut on the drawn line and separate this into two pieces so that you'll have a blue and a white sewn together. So I'm just gonna grab my little cutting mat really quick. Okay. I am literally just going to put my ruler along the drawn line and cut it in half. And now I have two half square triangle pieces. So when I open them up, they look like that. Yay, they're so pretty. Okay, I'm gonna do that one here too. All right, so now I have my 4 half square triangles. So we're gonna go over to the sewing machine, hello, we're here. We're gonna go to the ironing board and we're going to press these open. And when you press them open, you want to make sure you press towards the dark side. So I will show you all of that in just a moment. Okay, so we didn't actually go to the iron. I brought the iron here. Doesn't matter. Okay, so whenever you are going to press, what you should do is you're going to press towards the dark side or the printed side or whatever. So always put the side that you're pressing toward on top. So if you put that on top, then you can just roll it backwards, give it a little finger press, try not to stretch it because that will stretch the block out and make it funky sized. So I gave it a little finger press and then you can put your iron on it. I can give it a little press. You can put some steam if you want. I'm out of steam, so okay, well, a little bit. So I'm just going to repeat that with all 4. So I'm going to open it up towards the dark, give it a little finger press, try not to stretch it. But you want to make sure that you don't get a little ridge right here, because if you get a ridge right, okay, why can't I see, there you go. A ridge here, when you go to quilt it, it's going to cause problems with your quilting. So you want to make sure that you flip it all the way over. And that's why I like to kind of peel it back and then give it a press. You just don't want to do it too far because then you'll stretch it. So it's like a fine balance. Which the more you do it, better you get. Okay, open and press back. And that's pressing. Woohoo! Isn't that exciting? Okay, we're going to trim in just a minute. Okay, for trimming, there are 2 different ways you can trim. You can take your block. We're going to trim these according to the pattern to 4.5 inches. You can put it on your mat, which I put it crooked, so let me turn it. There you go. You can put it on your mat. Here, line up your seam here on your 45, so this would go into the point. And then put this side on your 45-inch line, and then you can go to your 4.5 and you can trim it off. It looks like it barely needs anything, so we could actually do that really quick. I use my tiny ruler. So, and I'm not a perfect sewer, so trimming is big. It's a big deal. So I'm going to go here at 4.5. See, it doesn't need very much. No matter how carefully you sew, your blocks are always going to end up being a little bit off, so don't even feel bad if that's the case. Okay, now this side is square now. That's why I'm not worried about lining up. Well, although maybe I should. Okay, what did I do? Confused myself is what I did. You know what? I'm just going to go like this. And I know this is naughty, but I'm going to do it anyways. Sometimes it's easier. 1, 2, 3, yeah. This mat is so hard. I really should think about getting a smaller one. Okay, and then you're going to cut off your dog ear. Okay, this one I didn't quite get it trimmed up perfectly, so you'll see that, but I'm gonna leave it. Obviously, I'm not gonna redo it. But that's not my preferred way of trimming, so I'm not very good at it. I prefer using a trimming tool. For instance, Block Lock. So Block Lock is really cool because you put the words on your background and then it locks. That's why it's called a Block Lock. So it'll actually slide along your block. So this is more my preferred way of doing it. So what I do is I slide it down until I get this side is within the 4.5 inches because that's what we're trimming to. And this block is a little wonky, so I'm going to kind of fudge it a little bit. As long as your little extra pieces that are off are within your 1/4 inch, you're totally fine. So I'm going to trim that off, and I'm going to trim this side off. Okay. And then I'm going to turn it around. And remember, writing goes on the background. So it locks, and then I'm going to go down here until I'm at 4.5, 4.5, and then I'm going to trim off this side. This is a very neat tool. If you don't have one, I recommend it. This one here I got from my shop, and it's a 6.5 inch because you can trim any size below 6.5 with this, and so it's universal because they're not cheap. I'm not gonna lie about that. They are not cheap, but so handy and so useful. So, as you saw when I did it the other way, I suck at that way. Okay, now see, this one's a lot bigger. So here's my 4.5 and 4.5. Don't ask me why that happens. I don't know. None of us are perfect. So we are just doing the best that we can. Make sure your writing goes on your background. Now I can line up my 4.5 and my 4.5. I always start from the side because I don't like starting, if I can, on the edge of a ruler because I always catch it and then I chunk up my blade and my ruler and it's just meh. You do you. Okay, writing on the white. I like my numbers up here. So I'm going to make sure I'm within my, put it all the way on, 4.5 inches. I am. Trim, trim. There we go. And then turn it around. Again, if you could spin your mat, it would be really helpful if you have a spinning mat. Remember, this one is a spinning mat, but it keeps hitting the camera, so I'm doing it the hard way. That's right. Okay. There we go. It took a second. Oh, it's still a little bit off. This side down here is still a little bit off, so I am actually going to just do it again. There's no skin off my nose. What am I doing wrong here? There we go. 4.5, 4.5. It slipped a little bit when I trimmed the first time. No biggie. Okay. And it probably would have been fine anyways. There are my 4 half square triangles that we're going to use in the block. They're actually going to be the corners. All right, so we'll move on to the next part. All right, so for the next part of this block, we're going to actually make some flying geese. So what we're going to do is we're going to end up putting a triangle on the corner, so it's going to end up looking similar to this. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to do it just like we did the half square triangles before. We're going to draw a line on the back. Now, this one, guys, is important because this is a front and a back. So make sure you are on the back of the little blue squares. And you're going to draw a line from corner to corner. Oh, that one got off just a little bit. Give yourself a little bit of room so that you can get to the actual corner. Okay? So here is my drawn line on here. My phone is ringing, sorry. So I'm not going to do that though. I'm going to use my diagonal seam tape. And when I'm sewing this time, I'll actually pull the camera over close so you can see the diagonal seam tape and see what I'm talking about. Those of you that have it know that it's amazingly awesome. So I highly, yes, everybody should have it. Saves you so much time. So we will get to sewing first. Oh, I guess I should tell you how it lays out. So when you're doing this, you want to make sure, if you look on the pattern, it has you put it on the piece like this. So that's what it should look like. Okay? All right. And you're going to do that. You're going to put 4 and 4. Okay? These other 4 we're going to use for the other side, so you don't need them yet. All right, let's get to sewing. All right, to sew these together, I want to make sure that I get my corners on here. And I've got the drawn line on this one. Now this time you are going to sew directly on the line. You might even want to sew just a little bit to the outside edge so that when you flip it over, you have a full size. Not a lot, like literally a needle's worth on the outside of that if you want to. You can totally sew it right on the line, it's fine. So I just put my needle on there. And this one has the drawn line, so I'm just going to sew right on the line. Didn't want to start. I hate that. Okay, so now I'm going to take, this time I don't have a drawn line. Here's my background. I'm going to put this on here just like before. I'm going to sew from corner to corner, but this time I'm going to use my tape. So what I do is I put this corner directly under my needle. And then this corner, I put right on that red line, and I hold it there, and I just follow it all the way up, and that will sew corner to corner. Got my finger under there a little bit, that can hurt. Okay, again, corner to corner. Okay, put it under. And then just follow the red line. It's amazing stuff. There we go. And those 4 are done. Now, to make a flying geese, you do need to cut, trim, press in between each side. So this is my blade saver. It trims my threads for me. You put an old rotary blade in there. It's super cool. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to cut off this extra side over here. So when you have your piece like this, what you're going to do is you're going to fold this back and you're going to make the diagonal or the triangle. So when you fold that back, but you don't want all this extra behind it, so you're actually going to cut it off. So you can use your scissors, you can use your rotary blade, whatever you want. If I had my mat out already, I would use my rotary blade, but for filming, I always have to get it out and blah, blah, blah. So as long as you cut within a 1/4 inch, you're fine. If it's a little bigger, who cares? It's not quite straight, not going to matter because you're not going to see it. But you do need to cut these out of the way. Okay. You can just toss. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're actually going to press them back. Okay, all the way back. So you might want to give them a quick press under the iron. Finger pressing is good if you have a wheel. You can also do that because you're going to sew immediately on the other side. That would also work. I'm going to run over to the iron really quick and just give them a quick little press and I'll be right back. Okay, as you can see, these are all now pressed up nice and pretty. They're so gorgeous. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this, the other 4 of our squares, and we're going to put it on the other side of the rectangle, and we're going to sew. We're going to go and we're going to cross up this point right here. Okay, I'm going to start sewing down here because it's harder to start up here when you've got thicker fabric. That's what always jumbles up your machine. So it's a pain. Even if your machine does get a little jumbled, you might want to start with a little scrap fabric in there so you can kind of give it a tug when it gets going. But I'm going to start on the opposite end. Now, if you accidentally put this side on first, it doesn't matter.
totally doesn't matter. As long as when you're done, you have a point that looks like that, like it's pointing to something. That's a flying geese. So even if you accidentally put one the wrong way, it doesn't matter as long as when you're done, you have them on both sides. Okay, so don't panic if you did it the other way. And again, I'm going to use my diagonal seam tape. So, but if you don't have it, draw the line from corner to corner and make sure it's going this way. See, and this is always, the first one's always a pain because it gets caught more. And I'm lining this up right here. Keeping it lined up, and I am crossing that spot, so you'll see. Right here, I crossed over to my other one so that when I flip it back, it's gonna look like that. Okay, so that's what you're aiming for. So now I put this one on. Make sure right side down, and you're going this way. So I turn it around so that I can do it that way. See, it kind of gets jumbled, so you gotta give it a little tug. It all depends on where you put it when you start. Sometimes you don't get it in all the way and it gets kind of sucked down into the bobbin thing. Just give it a little tug. Okay, I'm gonna go up again. Got it on my line. Oh. My foot slipped on here or something. That was funny. Okay, so now right side down. And I'm going up. I'm gonna give it a tug this time when I start so that I don't have to worry about it. And there's those four. Use my blade saver. Actually, I'm gonna cut this one twice because it has a long thread. And cut off my thread. All right, so now when I open it up, I have my beautiful little geese. Oh, it's so cute. But once again, you have to cut this back part off. So just cut 1/4 inch-ish. I think I just made a new word, 1/4 inch-ish. See, that was not a perfectly pretty cut, so don't worry about it if it's not. If I had bigger scissors right here, I would totally use them. I've lost them, so I don't know. We'll see. They'll show up when I least expect it. No big deal. And you can just toss these or save them so you can actually use them as a leader. So when you need to give a tug, you can. I do that a lot. I have a whole bowl. All right, so now you're going to flip this side back and you're going to give it a little press. And you're going to want to take these over to the iron now and give the whole thing a nice good press. So just fold it back towards the corner. Try not to stretch it. Fold it back towards the corner. Little finger press. Finger press just makes it go into the iron better. You tend to stretch it less on the iron if you give it a little finger press first. All right, just make sure you don't have a little ridge. And then fold it back and give it a little press. And then take it to the iron and do a full press, which I'm gonna go do off camera. I'll be right back. Okay, we are moving right along. So we are now going to make our flying geese and bar units. So that uses the apricot and the cute little flying geese that you just made and pressed. So what you want to do is you want to take and you want to have a flying geese on top, and then you're going to have this coming up below it. I'm going to double check to make sure I have that right. Yep, okay. Sometimes. So what you want to do is you just want to flip this over and put it right on top, okay? And then line them up. Fingernails are great for this. Okay. Now, I'm going to pin. I'm a pinner. If you don't want to be a pinner, that's totally your call. You don't have to. I just pin in the middle to hold it together so that they don't go wonky off the edge. Now, there is a trick to doing this. When you sew, because you're going to sew along this edge right here, right?
So as you go along your 1/4 inch, you want to make sure that this little point where this intersection is right there, you want to make sure you're on that side of it so that when you flip it back around, you still have a point. If you go too far on this side, you're literally going to cut off that point and it's going to have a flat top. Okay? So even if you're sewing along and then you realize, oh, you might even veer over just a slight amount. Just try not to make a big loop because that's obvious. But if you have to, just kind of veer over a little bit. But it should be within a 1/4 inch. It's pretty close if it's not. So that's what you're going to do is you're going to lay all of those together. So you're going to take this and you're going to flip it on. I always turn it over so I can see. I like working from the top. Okay, and then I'm going to pin it. Like I said, I'm a pinner. Okay, so here I go. I'm going to flip this over. The reason I'm putting the blue on top is because I want to be able to see that intersection so that I can know when I'm going to cross it. Now, if you look at this one, my 1/4, it's a lot smaller. So I have, well, it's maybe a 1/4 inch, but I'm going to have to veer just slightly right there if I don't want to cut off that point. If you flip it around and you do cut off the point, I mean, big deal. It's really not going to be that big of a deal in the grand scheme of the whole quilt when it's finished. And especially once it's quilted and things like that. If your point is slightly off, it's not going to show. So I don't recommend, that you take it apart and redo it or anything. I mean, if you accidentally slip and you go way down, sure. But if it's slightly off, it's not going to matter once the quilt is finished. We always see everything in the blocks as we're doing them because they're individual blocks. But when you actually put the whole quilt together, they don't show anymore. So just keep that in mind. All right, so I will meet you over here at the sewing machine and we will sew these up.
Okay, so now I'm ready to sew. You can actually follow this gray line if you have diagonal seam tape because that is a 1/4 inch. So you can actually just put your piece right along it and follow it if you want to. I have a 1/4 inch foot, so it's not a big deal, and I did put a leader in here so I can go ahead and give it a tug when I'm sewing. Okay, so I'm just going. Now, as I'm coming up here, I need my stiletto. It's over on the other table. Okay, so I'm coming along, and I'm just gonna make sure. See, I veered just slightly so that I was on that side of that little intersection. I think the rest of them are better. That one was the one I showed you earlier that was kind of tight. And I should have my stiletto. Stiletto is that little pointy thing that you can hold your fabric as it goes under your needle. So handy. The final one. This one's good. I didn't have to do any veering on that one. Okay, I'm going to cut them apart with my blade saver again. I love this thing. Okay, so take the pins out before you poke yourself. I've done that. I've bled. All right, so now let's open it up and see how we did. And there I have my little point. Can you tell I have a point? So that looks pretty good. That's the one I had to veer off on. Okay, so then let's check this one. Oh, now see, that one was even bigger, right? But I would rather have more fabric down here and be able to see the point. My personal preference. So let's see. Oh, now this one is darn near perfect. Look at that. That is pretty good. It's really going to look good once you iron it. Holy cow. Look at that one. It's got a lot more blue. But again, I'd rather have more blue than less blue. So we're okay. Now this one we're actually going to press towards the apricot. It wants to press towards the apricot. So just give it a finger press. press it back. Don't these look pretty together? So nice. Okay. Press it back. And then press it back. And then you're going to want to go to the iron and you're going to want to give it a nice little press. I'm going to go do that instead of taking out all this stuff. So, okay, go give it a press.
Okay, I just got back from the iron and they should look like this. I am going to, it doesn't say in the directions, I realize now, but you might want to check to make sure these are 4.5 inches. So just to make sure that if you don't have any wonky off so this one falls within 4.5. Because if they're a little bit, you know, bigger or whatever. Now see, this one might need to be trimmed up a little bit. It's the one that had the really big blue. So that's probably why, because my seam is probably not 1/4 inch in there. Like I said, we are not perfect. In a perfect world, we'd be perfect, but we're not. So that one, and then let me check to see. Nope, that side falls within, okay. Oops, close it, safety first. Okay. So this one is a little wonky, and I'm not sure what happened, but see how my blue is hanging way far off? So I'm actually lining this up more with the apricot, and it is actually, I don't know how this one got bigger, but whatever, it did. So I am going to trim it up a little bit. I'm going to turn it over this way. Line up. These sides are mostly straight. I'm going to have to trim the bottom a little bit too, it looks like. And then I'm going to trim this weird long piece off. I don't know how that happened, but, you know, once again, I am not perfect. So now I'm going to go this way and look at the 4.5. And it is a little bit big over here too, which probably because that one was. So whatever. Just check them. They will go together better if you trim them. If you make sure they're 4.5, because then they're going to fit with these 4.5s that we already did. So if you think it's a little wonky, which that was the reason I decided to trim these or check them, was because that one was so far off and I knew it was going to mess me up later. So this falls in the 4.5 and that falls in the 4.5. So it was only the one that needed to be trimmed up. So it's good practice to check them. So we now have all of our pieces ready to assemble for the full block. This is the exciting part. Building pieces is great, but seeing it all together is the best. Okay, so it just says lay it out according to the picture, because honestly, that's what we all do. So we didn't need a second diagram. So I just pulled up my picture again. And it looks like these are the corners. The background goes out. So I'm gonna do this. Background goes out. The teal is the middle. Ooh, gosh, those look pretty together, don't they? Oh my goodness, holy cow. Gosh, that looks kind of pretty with the white. It'll almost make a cute block. And then the apricot goes in. Like that. And that is what your block is going to look like when it's finished. Oh my gosh, I love it. It's so pretty. All right, so now all we have to do is sew the rows together. So you can sew this one onto this one onto this one, and this one onto this one. Cut them apart, and then we'll sew this. And then I lay them back on here, just so you know. I lay them back down because I don't want to mess it up. I want to see how it's supposed to look. Then I'll sew all of these things on. So I always lay it back down. Some people don't. I need that. So first thing I'm going to do is flip this over, and I'm going to sew along this side. If you get confused on which sides, you could put a clip right there and see how nicely they line up since they're trimmed. Okay. And then I'm just going to sew 1/4 inch. Okay, now I'm going to grab this one, flip it onto here, sewing on this side. I don't like to stack them up and do it. I like to do them one at a time so I know exactly where I am. Let's see, give it a tug. Okay, and now this one onto here, and you're gonna go along that side. If you forget when you're doing all this lining up, if you forget which side, put it back down and check it again. Really need to go grab my stiletto. How many times am I going to get up without grabbing it? Oops, oops, oops. Oh, my, got stuck a little bit. It's okay. Okay, stay put. Okay. I just cut the thread off this one, so I know it's the outer edge, so it's going to go there. I know that the green, or the teal, is the middle, which makes this one the bottom. If you weren't sure, you could compare it to the picture again. No big deal. Okay, so now I'm going to take this edge and I'm going to put it onto here. Okay, now this is more bulky because these two going this direction are facing the same way. See, both these seams are going the same way. So what I'm going to do when I sew this one is I'm going to flip one of them around, because that way I can nest the two seams together and they will lock up, and then my lines will come together at the same point. So I'm flipping over this one. It doesn't matter which one. I just did that because it's on top. So I'm going to take this, and I'm actually, because it's going down, so the flipped over one's going down, I'm actually putting it on my sewing machine and holding it with my finger so that it doesn't come undone. I want that to stay flipped over. So I'm still holding it. There I go. This one doesn't matter because they are so nice and straight and flat. Love that kind. I'm just lining it up. So a straight line, 1/4 inch. And then I take this one and I flip it over. And again, I have these two are going the same way. So I'm just gonna flip the blue because that's what I flipped last time. Now, when you flip it over, if you feel a gap, and you can if you put your fingers over there, move it around so that when you flip it over, there's no gap between there. That's how you know they're gonna line up straight. It's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm still holding that part with my finger. Okay, 1/4 inch. It's gonna make it weird when you iron it, when you press it at the end, but it's totally fine. It'll work. Just make sure when you press it, you just press it flat. Yes, it'll have a little bit of a twirl in it when you press it, but that's okay. All right, now you got to pay attention. Apricots in the middle. Apricots in the middle, you know, faces the middle. So that makes this one the actual middle. Okay, so what I want to do is see how it's naturally kind of wanting to go this way. When you're pressing, this has less seams on this side, so it wants to go that way, so I'm going to let it. So I'm just going to finger press it. Okay, I'm going to flip this one the same way because it wants to. Now, this side lined up really good. This side didn't. You can see it. That's not matching at all. I'm going to leave it because, one, they're lined up on this end, but in the grand scheme of things, you are not going to be able to tell when it's finished. Okay, so both of these I'm pressing towards the blue, the dark blue. So I'm going to do the same thing with the top up here. I'm going to let it go the way it wants to go. Okay, go this way. I'm going to press it. Yeah, that one didn't turn out good either. Wonder what that was. Weird. Okay, Now this one, I want it to go opposite of these ones. So I want this one, these ones are pressing out. The seam, extra fabric is going that way. So I want this extra fabric to go towards the middle. And this way it doesn't matter because they're both flat. So it'll easily let you flip it over and give it a finger press. Easily flip that little extra fabric back towards the center and then, come on. Okay, I said easily and then it's being just difficult. That's the way it works. Okay, so now when I'm going to take these over to the ironing board now that they're the way I want them, right? I'm going to take them over there. And so these ones are going this way underneath, that way underneath, that way, this way, and these ones are going to the middle. So they're going in opposite ways. It'll work like magic when we put it all together. I'm going to transfer all of these to my design board so when I carry it over to my ironing, it's not going to get messed up. So, and I'm going to, now that I moved it, I'm going to double check my pattern, make sure I have it right. Okay. And now I'm going to run over to my iron and I'm going to give it a press and I'll be right back. Oh my gosh, it's turning out so pretty. Okay. So now everything is pressed and I was very careful to make sure I kept my seams going the way that I wanted them to. Now I'm going to sew each row together. So I'll sew these two and then open it up and sew these two. So I'm going to put this over, just flip it over. Now, because I pressed my seams in opposite directions, now I can make it so that my seams right here are going to go in opposite directions. So the top is going that way and the bottom is going that way. So I can put them together and nest them. They actually will butt up against each other and then you can feel with your fingers if there's a gap or not. If you're not sure if there's a gap, slide it away from each other and then you can feel it and then you can scoot it back. I do that a lot actually. And once again, I am a pinner. I am pinning across that to keep it in place. Now I'm going to do this side. Okay. Oh, see, there was a gap. It's seriously, it's like doing it blind sometimes because you're literally just going off of feeling. Okay, I'm going to pin it. You can use Wonder Clips if you like. Okay. I'm gonna pin this one. These ones are going in opposite directions. You can flip it around and pin it if you'd like. In fact, you know what? In fact, I'm going to because I really want those corners to line up. So let's see. Let's go this way. Oh, no, these ones. Oh, no, because I'd already flipped it. Okay. Brain dead sometimes. Okay, so I'm flipping that one. Gonna give it a quick pin. I'm actually gonna start there. So then this one, I'm gonna give it, it would have worked because it was lined up. But better to be safe than sorry. Okay. So now all I have to do is sew these together, just making sure you keep those nested. I am going to put a leader in because I'm starting. It's thick, it's double layer. So anytime it's double layer, I always try to use my leader. So I'm gonna put that in and then I'm gonna take my pin out. Don't sew your pin, that'd be bad. Okay, 1/4 inch. Take out my pin. Feel, make sure it's still nested. Take out your pin. Now this one I took out and pinned farther back, but I'm holding it with my finger. Okay, let's see. How did we do? So, well, not too shabby. So that one looks pretty good. That one looks pretty good. That one looks pretty good. And that one looks pretty good. So all that pinning paid off. So make sure you lay it exactly the way the pattern looks. So this is in the middle. Because now you're going to take this one and you're going to flip it on top. I always turn it over because that's the way I work. Okay, and again, repeat the process. All you gotta do is make sure there's no gap or an overlap, because you could also overlap it, but you can really feel that too. So I pinned it. See, that one was overlapped a little bit, so I slid it with my fingers, pinned it, and then here I'm gonna have to flip one of them over again. No big deal. Pin that without poking myself. I poke myself so much, it's ridiculous. Okay, I'm gonna flip the blue over, the dark blue, since they're both blue. And I'm going to, oh, there it goes. Pin this one, which is the side I'm gonna start on. So now take it to the sewing machine. I'm going to use a leader because it is the beginning of a chunky block. Put that in, pull my pin out. If you need to, give it a little tug. Okay, pull my pin out. That one might be a little off. There it goes. Okay. That one had a little bit of a lump in it. Okay. And if you have a little bit of extra up here, just give it a little bit of a tug. Don't tug too much because you don't want to wickedly stretch it out, but a little tug is okay. Not a tug. You want to make it taut. A tug kind of implies you're stretching it, but a taut just means, you know, keep it taut. Okay, let's see. Oh, I was worried about that other one. All right, so not bad. Pretty spot on for, whoa, where is it at in the camera? There it is. And spot on for that one. And that one's a little bit off, but I think it was one of those that had the really off seam anyways, so not bad, not compared to the other way. Okay, now at this point, it's up to you. It's time to press. I personally, when I have my last rows sewn together, I like to press open. It is entirely your call how you want to do it. You can press it so your seams go this way or that way if you wanted. It looks like they want to go that way. That's cool. If you want to. I like my final blocks to be very flat, and you get a flatter block by pressing them open. So I will actually go through, and it takes a little bit longer because sometimes they're a pain, but I'll go through and do a finger press all the way down. Then I'll put it on my iron and I'll give it a press. And some of these things will get flipped over. Like right here, this is one where we had to flip it over. So you're just gonna need to press that flat. It's fine, just press it flat. So press that part however you want. And then make sure you give the front a nice, good press. Don't have any ridges. If you press from the back first, it's easier to get ridges. So make sure you always check the front and keep it so that it's ridge-free. So you can also just flip it like this and then press it that way, and that will work as well. I'm gonna press mine open. So I'm gonna go do that, and then we will see the finished block when we're done. So you press it your way, and meet me back here in a few minutes. Wow, that was a fast few minutes, wasn't it? Just kidding. Anyways, here's your beautiful block. Isn't it gorgeous? It is so pretty. Oh my gosh, I'm in love with it. I thought last month's block was pretty, but I love this, how the dark blue just pops on all of this. It's gorgeous. Anyways, now you can trim your block to 12.5 if you like. I always wait till I'm ready to put the quilt together before I trim, but you can certainly go ahead and trim yours to 12.5. And then you are done. So you can sit back and admire the beauty of your block and be proud of yourself because you totally did it.